This is KTVU Fox 2 News at 6.
Developing news from Paso Robles tonight, where several law enforcement officers have reportedly been wounded in a shootout with a wanted suspect. Authorities say the gunman was spotted about 3 this afternoon after 2 separate shootouts. He is now in custody and, quote, secured and unresponsive. Good evening to you. I'm Andre Sr. in for Frank.
And I'm Julie Hayner. Here's what we know so far in this developing story. The intense manhunt was for a gunman suspected of an ambush in San Luis Obispo County yesterday that left a sheriff's deputy seriously wounded. Officials say the suspect, 26-year-old Mason James Lira of Monterey, had opened fire at the Paso Robles police station early yesterday and then ambushed the responding deputy. A homeless person was also found shot to death, and that triggered the manhunt. Then around 3 o'clock this afternoon, officers located Lira and exchanged gunfire. One officer from the Arroyo Grande Police Department was wounded. A second shootout about an hour later left several more officers wounded. The suspect was also shot and is described as unresponsive. His father said today his son is mentally ill. We will keep an eye on this breaking situation on the Central Coast and bring you updates as we get them.
And closer to home, the suspect who shot and killed a Santa Cruz sheriff's sergeant over the weekend is due in court tomorrow for the first time. The FBI is trying to figure out if he is also responsible for a deadly shooting of a federal security officer in Oakland. KTVU crime reporter Henry Lee with the long list of charges he is facing.
Special circumstances murder. Those are the charges lodged against Stephen Carrillo, accused of fatally shooting Santa Cruz Sheriff Sergeant Damon Gutzwiller. Carrillo is an active duty military police staff sergeant at Travis Air Force Base in Fairfield. Santa Cruz DA Jeff Roselle charged Carrillo with murder and the special circumstances of murder of a peace officer and lying in wait. That means if he's convicted, Carrillo could face life in prison without parole or the death penalty, which is on hold in California.
What the district attorney in Santa Cruz is doing is hoping at some point that moratorium will be lifted and the jury will be afforded the opportunity to bring back a death penalty.
The DA said earlier in the week that Carrillo will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
I can assure you this person will be brought to justice.
Gutzwiller leaves behind a pregnant wife and young child. The crime spree Saturday began with reports of a suspicious white van with guns and bomb-making material inside. Deputies found the van at the suspect's home in Ben Lomond, where they were met with gunfire and explosions from improvised devices. The DA's office also charged Carrillo with attempted murder for allegedly shooting and running over K-9 deputy Alex Spencer. Carrillo was also charged with trying to kill other deputies and officers and with a series of carjacking attempts.
And an attempted murder of quite a number of other police officers, along with explosive devices. There are some 18 counts in this complaint.
After the rampage, Carrillo was held down by citizens until deputies arrived. The FBI is trying to determine if the suspect's white van is the same van seen speeding from the Oakland Federal Building after security officer Dave Patrick Underwood was shot and killed on May 29th. Carrillo is being held at Monterey County Jail to avoid any conflict should he be held in Santa Cruz County. He is set to be arraigned on Friday. Henry Lee, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Now to a water rescue in San Francisco. This afternoon, the fire department rescued 5 swimmers at Ocean Beach. Skyfox was overhead after the young people were brought to safety. This all happened about 2:30 this afternoon between Sloat Boulevard and Vicente. The San Francisco Fire Department tweeted that 3 of the swimmers were taken to a hospital. 2 were evaluated at the scene. The riptides in this area are notoriously dangerous and can cause problems for even the most accomplished swimmers.
On Wall Street, stocks fell sharply today over concerns about a new wave of coronavirus cases and fears of a prolonged economic downturn. The Dow lost more than 1,800 points, down nearly 7%. The Nasdaq fell 527 points after closing above 10,000 for the first time just yesterday. And the S&P was down 188 points. Bay Area financial advisor James McBride told us investors are reacting to a lot of uncertainty about the future.
On the one side, we saw the euphoria the last couple of weeks of businesses reopening and the market responding to this. On the other side, we know that the other side of the seesaw, if you will, is there is no vaccine, and the number of coronavirus cases is increasing, as are the number of deaths. And I think there is an abundant fear in the market that the economy simply cannot close down again. That would be just devastating.
McBride said traders are concerned that the economic recovery will be longer and slower than initially hoped for. The Labor Department released its latest unemployment numbers today, showing 1.5 million Americans filed for claims last week. It is the 10th straight weekly decline in new claims as more businesses are reopening. But it's still more than double the pre-pandemic record of 695,000 back in 1982. The number of people currently receiving benefits is more than 20 million.
Scientists suggest that being outside helps reduce the risk of virus transmission. Now some cities in the South Bay and on the peninsula are closing down streets so restaurants can put dining tables outdoors. As KTVU's Jesse Gary explains, the move may help some businesses stay afloat.
With a mask on his face and chairs in his hands, Palo Alto restaurateur Michael Oliverio is setting up for the next stage of the COVID-19 recovery.
It's like a dream come true. They close up the street for us, and it's a new start for us.
Beginning Thursday, the city of Palo Alto shuts California Avenue to vehicular traffic.
It wasn't a rush decision, but it was done in an expeditious manner so people could take advantage.
The move allows restaurant owners to offer outdoor dining since county coronavirus restrictions limit the number of patrons who can go inside.
I can't stop smiling. Very excited, and I was able to get a lot of my employees back.
Sunnyvale took this plunge a few days ago, closing historic Murphy Avenue. Officials say the $187 permit fee for outdoor dining is waived as an enticement for the city's 350 restaurants.
It's been phenomenal. The restaurants have been very proactive and very happy to be able to expand on Murphy Avenue from the sidewalk onto the street.
We're seeing this trend everywhere. It's actually pretty cool. We're seeing it in the Northeast, the Atlantic seaboard, the South, and then now the West Coast.
Experts say allowing restaurants to use streets and, in some areas, parking lots for food service feeds their individual economic needs and the overall Bay Area economy.
As a step to getting the country reopened, it's a good step.
It could also be the perfect step at the right time, just as summer is starting and temperatures are warming. Officials say Murphy Avenue has been packed since dining expanded to the street.
It was wonderful. A totally unexpected surprise. I had no idea that anything was really going to be open.
It's a good thing. It's less cars. Less cars. It's a good thing.
Very good. So we will see you tonight at 6:30.
Michael Oliverio hopes the expansion allows him to rehire all the workers the COVID shutdown forced him to lay off.
And I just know that this is going to be a new beginning for all of us.
There are hopes this small thing will lead to others on the road to a full recovery. In San Jose, Jesse Gary, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
And starting tomorrow, San Francisco restaurants can begin offering sit-down meal service outdoors. Social distancing must be maintained. Diners will only be allowed to enter restaurants to use restrooms, place an order, or to access an outdoor dining space. Restaurants in the city are also being allowed to set up dining spaces in public spaces, including on sidewalks, streets, and in parks. Each table will be limited to 6 customers, and customers have to wear a face covering anytime they leave the table. The San Jose Unified School District held a virtual meeting this afternoon to discuss plans for reopening in the fall. The Zoom meeting reached capacity at 1,000 people. The forum gave parents an opportunity to ask questions regarding the process of moving forward. The district's board meeting is being held this evening.
Well, some health experts believe young people may be fueling California's spike in coronavirus cases. The number of cases continue to rise, but hospital visits and deaths are not following that same trend. Hospitalizations have been declining since April, and so has the state's 7-day average of coronavirus deaths. The Bay Area News Group spoke with an epidemiologist from UCSF who says he believes these new patients are younger, healthier, and less likely to have severe symptoms. California reported 105 deaths over the last 24 hours. The state now has more than 142,000 cases and nearly 4,900 people have passed away. According to the U.S., there are more than 2 million cases and more than 420,000 people have died nationwide.
Researchers say people who have recovered from SARS may hold the key to fighting COVID-19. The Chronicle reports that antibodies from people who beat that deadly respiratory disease have now been shown to block the coronavirus from entering cells. Scientists say this is an important discovery because antibody therapeutics are quicker to develop, test, and get approved. They can also be used in vaccine development.
Well, coming up, not allowing firefighters to go into burning buildings, a new mandate from one Bay Area fire district and the one exception. Then President Trump gearing up to resume campaign rallies, why black leaders say his first event is a slap in the face.
We apologize we couldn't hear Bill there, but we will shortly. Also ahead tonight, a different way to honor George Floyd in San Francisco. The show of support today from the city's skateboarding community. And taking a live look outside at the Bay Bridge Toll Plaza on this Thursday evening, where cars are just breezing right on through. KTVU News at 6 will be right back. New details tonight from Louisville in the Brianna Taylor case, nearly 3 months after she was shot and killed by police. The Louisville Police Department has now released its incident report. It says Taylor was shot after officers entered her home as part of a narcotics investigation. Critics say the 4-page report is missing key details, including information about Taylor's injuries, how the officers got into her home, and what happened upon entry. They say the report lacks transparency and the inaccuracies are unacceptable. The police department says it is now working to correct them. Also, the detective who requested the no-knock warrant was temporarily reassigned. In Minneapolis, one of the 4 former police officers charged in connection with George Floyd's death is now out of jail. Thomas Lane posted the $750,000 cash bail yesterday evening. He is due in court on June 29th and plans to request that all charges be dismissed. Lane's attorney says his client is a rookie. He was on the job just 4 days before the incident and says he twice asked Officer Derek Chauvin if they should roll Floyd on his side. Chauvin and 2 other officers remain in jail.
And back here in the Bay Area, San Francisco Mayor London Breed laid out a plan to make fundamental changes to policing. From her tweet, you can see the mayor wants to demilitarize police, end police responses to non-criminal activity, address bias and strengthen accountability, and redirect funding for racial equality. More on the push for changes now from KTVU's Kristen Captain.
Protesters took to the streets of San Francisco calling for police reform. Organizer Alexis Lusk says it's time to rethink how to keep the city's communities safe.
My community is looking for accountability and for them to be accountable of their actions.
Lusk says she hopes city leaders listen and join the movement to divert funds from San Francisco police to community-based organizations aimed at helping the community as a whole.
We do want to see defunding from the police department and putting that into the brown and black communities.
If we're going to make real significant change, we need to fundamentally change the nature of policing itself.
San Francisco Mayor London Breed hosted a video conference aimed at exploring issues surrounding policing in the African-American community. She says although the city has just a 6% African-American population, they are vastly overrepresented in the city's homeless population and criminal justice system. The mayor says she's looking at shifting funds to help create real change in the city.
Reforms go hand in hand, both around police reforms and criminal justice reforms as well. We've seen in San Francisco a lot of real change, but also knowing that we have a lot more to do.
Police Chief Bill Scott adding that the city is making progress on the 272 recommendations from the Department of Justice 5 years ago to create a 21st century police force, but adds there is a lot more work that needs to be done.
Even with the 61 recommendations that we have completed, one of the things that we had to work on was what's the continuous improvement loop.
The mayor also releasing details on her roadmap to reforming the police department, in part calling for police to not be first responders in non-criminal situations. She's calling for changes to the police department's hiring, promotional, training, and disciplinary systems. She's also calling for a demilitarizing of the police and calling for redirecting funding to invest in marginalized communities. In San Francisco, Christian Cafton, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Well, it was a different kind of protest, but one just the same. This afternoon in the city's Twin Peaks neighborhood, and as you can see right here, skateboarders gathered on Market Street this afternoon, and they rode their boards from Twin Peaks all the way down to the Embarcadero. The event was called Bomb Hills for Black Lives. Participants encouraged skaters of all skill levels to join them along the way.
And if you didn't know, San Francisco has a long, Bay Area, but San Francisco has a long history of skating culture, skateboard magazine, things like that. So there's a real subculture, and you guys know this, out in the avenues, the kids that skate out there, some world famous skaters from San Francisco. But just that's part of what we do, you know, a little bit of everything in San Francisco. You don't think about skating, but skating, you know, you think about LA and Dogtown, but skating in San Francisco is a big thing, still is. So as we go outside, we're going to cool things off a little bit. We did today, we cool further Friday, and we start to warm up a little, yeah, we're going to see about the same on Saturday. And then we're going to warm up on Sunday, something like that. It's going to be nice, the weekend's nice, but if you're looking at outdoor stuff, Sunday's going to be your best day for that type of thing. 94 in Fairfield, 90 in Napa, 89 in Vallejo, 92 in Concord, and 91 in Livermore. And speaking of, I used to a couple times, I surfed with Tony Hawk, who was a big skater. I surfed not with Tony, but his brother back in the day, used to live up here. So skating. Okay, look at the fog coming in off the beach there. A lot of fog out in the avenues now. That fog's really going to start to push inland, and with that you're going to see the inversion get bumped up, and so this clouds stretch out, everything moves inland, and things really cool. Friday and Saturday, temperatures in the 70s in the hot spots, not 90s. So we come back, I'll put numbers in there and give you a 5-day forecast. See you back here.
All right, we'll see you then, Bill. Thank you. A lack of funding is prompting some drastic policy changes for the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District. The chief says crews will not be entering a burning building now unless human life is at risk. The district, which serves several communities, including Brentwood, Oakley, and Discovery Bay, has had long-standing funding issues. It currently has 3 stations covering a 250-square-mile area. Multiple ballot measures have gone before voters over the years without passing.
That's the reason why we're supporting the fire chief in this decision. Obviously, it's not what we signed up for, it's not what we trained for, but it's the situation that we're in.
The chief said even more drastic measures may be necessary, and that the district's goal is to figure out a ballot measure that the community will support to provide adequate fire protection for the East County District.
Nearly a dozen Bay Area members of Congress today introduced legislation that aims to help the nation's power grid withstand extreme weather events, something we know a lot about here. Plans for the bill were first announced in November in response to last year's public safety power shutoffs. We remember those well. The lawmakers say reliable power is essential in the face of natural disasters. The bill would establish a power grid reliability standard and would also require the Department of Energy to publish a report on how to minimize the need for planned power outages. Well, today the California Public Utilities Commission approved PG&E's request to raise rates on customers in San Francisco. The company wants to cover the $10 million a year it has to pay because of Prop C. That measure increased taxes on the city's largest businesses to fund services for the homeless. PG&E's argued that it should be allowed to raise rates on customers in San Francisco because the taxes it has to pay in the city are significantly higher than in other places.
Coming up, the San Jose's mayor submits his budget proposal, and while it doesn't call for defunding the police, he does want to invest in police reform. We'll learn more about that. Also ahead tonight, BART is testing new fare gates. We'll show you the new style and why BART says it could help the transit agency save money.
San Jose Mayor Sam Liccardo outlined his budget proposal today. And as KTVU's Ann Rubin explains, it calls for police reform and highlights economic challenges presented by the coronavirus pandemic.
His budget message made it clear. San Jose Mayor Sam Liccardo rejects the idea of defunding police, something protesters have been demanding in recent days.
I believe the right response is reform and investment.
San Jose will start by allocating $300,000 to create an Office of Racial Equity. They'll also take $150,000 from the police overtime budget and use it to review their officers' use of force policy. And they'll expand the authority and scope of the independent police auditor.
But it seems to me that if you simply slash police budgets, we know what's going to happen in white, wealthy suburban parts of town. They can just hire private patrols. The reality is the rest of the community is going to be left without basic police response and will be much worse off.
LaDoris Cordell, a former independent police auditor, thinks giving more teeth to that position is a good start.
But even when we find the investigations problematic, we really don't have any authority to make the police department change their investigation. We can recommend it, we can push. So I'm hoping that at a minimum there might be a change in that.
And she'd like to see changes extend even further.
I don't mean Band-Aid fixes. So reforms, redirecting money, and then reimagining. We have to be doing all three.
Notably, this budget does not include hefty cuts, though the mayor expects that might change next year. Also included in the proposal, $7 million of CARES Act funds for struggling families, $1.5 million for child care providers, and $3.5 million to get hotspots to students for distance learning. Activists wish it went further.
Black and brown communities we're not eager to have more policing in our community. So yeah, it would affect us in the way that we want it to affect us. And we would want those funds for resources that we actually need.
The public will have a chance to weigh in on this budget on Monday before the City Council votes on Tuesday. Ann Rubin, KTVU Fox 2 News.
The BART Board of Supervisors is expected to approve a balanced budget later this month after making some major cuts. The budget for fiscal year 2021 was presented at a meeting earlier today. Ridership is only about 7% from its pre-COVID levels. And even after restrictions are lifted, BART expects ridership to be off about 30%. The agency has made $190 million in cuts since the shelter-in-place began, but it is spending $44 million in response to COVID-19.
Please note the $44 million allocation to COVID-related expenses. These are additional measures, mostly for cleaning, that we are planning to continue in order to keep customers and employees safe in fiscal 21.
The BART board is expected to approve the budget in 2 weeks and then revisit it in October to make some adjustments.
Well, coming up on KTVU News at 6:30, President Trump in Dallas today meeting with faith leaders and attend a fundraiser. We'll tell you the criticism, though, from black leaders as he gets ready to resume his campaign rallies.
Also ahead, there was a live sports event today as the PGA's top golfers return to the links for the Charles Schwab Challenge. Mark will have the highlights a little later in sports. Also ahead, more than 24 state parks get ready to reopen campgrounds, when you can pitch your tent, and what you need to know about making reservations.
This morning, San Jose Mayor Sam Liccardo shares plans for the city.
Moving forward with a lot of reforms, including halting of any use of rubber bullets.
And the power to know for commuters heading back to work.
Caltrain is increasing its weekday service.
The BART board is hearing timetable about installing a new fare gate system.
Then tomorrow, they've been a lifeline during this pandemic.
I'm glad they're here because we need the food.
KTVU celebrates the frontline food workers helping to keep us all fed in our Fox 2 Zip Trip Food Edition. Tomorrow on Mornings on 2.
Now to our top stories. The manhunt is over for a gunman suspected of an ambush in San Luis Obispo County that wounded a sheriff's deputy yesterday. Police tracked down the suspect, 26-year-old Mason James Lira of Monterey and Paso Robles. After 2 exchanges of gunfire, authorities say Lira was killed. 3 officers were said to be wounded, but their conditions are still not known.
5 swimmers were rescued at Ocean Beach in San Francisco after getting into trouble in the water. Skyfox overhead after the young people were brought to safety. 3 of the swimmers were taken to a hospital. 2 were evaluated at the scene. It's an area, by the way, this part of Ocean Beach, known for dangerous rip currents.
Stocks plunged on Wall Street today over growing fears of a second wave of the coronavirus. The Dow had its worst day since March, down more than 1,800 points. Airlines, cruise operators, and hotels took a dive, along with banks and energy shares.
You're watching KTVU Fox 2 News at 6:30. President Trump is preparing to head back on the campaign trail. The first event is scheduled for June 19th. In Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that is sparking outrage in the black community. Black leaders say it's disrespectful to hold the event on Juneteenth, a day marking the end of slavery in the U.S. And furthermore, Tulsa was the site of one of the nation's bloodiest white-on-black attacks back in 1921. This all comes as the president traveled to Dallas today for a roundtable discussion on police reform and economic disparities. Fox News' Ray Bogan has the details.
President Trump is in Dallas meeting with faith leaders, law enforcement, and business owners. He's outlining changes he hopes to see in law enforcement and community relations ahead of yet-to-be-announced legislative and executive actions.
Americans are good and virtuous people. We have to work together to confront bigotry and prejudice wherever they appear.
The Biden campaign criticized the president's trip, citing the coronavirus and ongoing protests in the wake of George Floyd's death. Biden stated the country and Texas are facing multiple crises, yet President Trump continues to demonstrate that he's not the right leader to address any of them. Both Biden and the president are expanding their public schedules. The president is eager to get his rallies going again, despite an uptick in coronavirus cases. Events are being planned in Oklahoma, Florida, Arizona, and North Carolina.
There has been just an explosion in the way that we're testing Americans all across the country, and the president is intent on getting back on the campaign trail.
Biden held an economic roundtable in Philadelphia on safely reopening the country.
This is a battle for the soul of America. Who are we?
While he's not officially the nominee, Biden has collected all the necessary delegates to secure the nomination. He's promising to pick a woman as his running mate.
The names that seem to be floated out there, all of them have been, I think, have been great.
The Biden campaign is also circulating a petition to put pressure on Facebook this campaign season. They're demanding Facebook promote trustworthy sources and remove false viral videos. Ray Bogan, Fox News.
In Washington today, Republican-led Senate committee approved a measure to remove the names of Confederate-era leaders from U.S. military bases. President Trump strongly opposed the idea, tweeting that bases such as Fort Bragg and Fort Hood are part of a, quote, great American heritage, end quote. Today, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said that the base names should be changed. She also called for statues of Confederate figures to be removed from the U.S. Capitol.
I think it's overdue. I think we realize across the United States that they are symbols of an institution of slavery which still plagues us today.
Yeah, we should remove the Confederate statues. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Multiple statues of Confederate leaders and of Christopher Columbus have been torn down by protesters in recent days. NASCAR has also announced a ban on displaying Confederate flags at all of its races and venues.
The president is calling on officials in Washington state to crack down on a protest in Seattle. Protesters have set up tents, barricades, and checkpoints covering a 6-block area. They are calling it the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. The protesters say Seattle police are not allowed inside that zone, which includes an abandoned police precinct. President Trump tweeted that the governor and mayor need to take back that city, calling the demonstrators, quote, ugly anarchists.
The Oakland Police Department released new numbers from the recent protests surrounding the death of George Floyd. The department says more than 300 people were arrested during the 2 weeks of unrest. About 200 businesses were looted or vandalized, and 137 fires were deliberately set. More than 30 first responders were hurt in the melees. Many of them were Oakland police officers.
Demonstrators took to the streets of Oakland once again today. They were protesting the CHP shooting of a car theft suspect and his pregnant girlfriend. Supporters of the couple gathered outside Highland Hospital, where Brianna Colombo is now recovering. Her boyfriend, 22-year-old Eric Salgado, was killed by plainclothes CHP officers on Saturday night as they were pursuing a stolen car investigation.
We lost Eric and possibly a second child as well. We do know that the baby did not survive.
CHP officers said they feared for their lives at the time of the shooting. They say the suspect was trying to ram their patrol cars, so they fired more than 40 rounds into the car. Police say the Dodge was one of 74 vehicles recently stolen by looters at a San Leandro car dealership.
All right, still ahead this evening, the plan to eliminate the Oakland School District's police force. After the break, why the police chief supports disbanding his department. We'll also have this, taller fare gates at BART, how the new design could help the agency save money in more ways than one.
It's time to shake up the world and show them that Black Lives Matter.
The black community is not responsible for what's happening in this country right now. We are.
For those of you who are using this movement to tear us down, we will not tolerate that.
But we have to change how we police the African-American community in this country.
I'm out here because I'm hurting, and I want people to realize that pain. This is not a joke.
Everyone needs to join together and stand up for our people of color.
I hear you. We're going to make some changes.
Thank you.
The superintendent of schools in Oakland says she supports a plan to eliminate the district's police force by the end of the year. But administrators will still need to keep campuses safe. KTVU's Rob Roth spoke with the school district's police chief today about what happens next.
The decision is not yet final, but after Wednesday night's school board meeting, all indications are the Oakland Unified School District will eliminate its 10-person police department at the end of the year.
I was supportive of it. Maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time to try something else.
School District Police Chief Jeff Godown says the idea has been under discussion for the past 2 years.
Maybe taking the funds and using them for restorative justice, behavioral health counselors, and other components of the school might make a difference.
The majority of the school board indicated support for School Superintendent Kyla Johnson-Trammell's proposal Wednesday to redirect the more than $2.5 million in police funds to student services.
Together, I believe, even though we may not know exactly how in this moment, I believe that we can reimagine how to keep our schools safe, healthy, and welcoming.
The school district says it will create a new safety plan over the next 6 months, one that will likely include civilian safety resource specialists. But Oakland police will be responsible for more serious calls, which Godown says average 2 or 3 per school day out of the approximately 2,000 calls in a year.
If the funding is reallocated to certain principles that are necessary to keep a good climate and culture in the schools, I think they're going to be successful. OPD will respond to the high priority calls. That's not going to be an issue.
But Oakland City Councilman Noel Gallo, a former school board member, says Oakland police are already short-staffed by 60 to 70 officers.
We do not have the manpower today to even take care of the needs in the city of Oakland. If you look at the 911 calls from last night, we couldn't even attend to those.
Oakland police said in a statement only that, quote, if the police are called, we will provide service as we provide to our community. Godown does credit the school district police with understanding the campuses and getting to know the students.
We did a lot of community relations. We were experts at going out to the school, and we had a lot of good contacts with the students and the staff. Will OPD be able to have a good working relationship? I've talked to the chief. They're very supportive.
The school board is expected to vote on the proposal in about 2 weeks. If it approves, the new safety plan would go into effect January 1st. Rob Roth, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
So the West Contra Costa County School Board took up a similar issue. Last night, the 5-member board voted unanimously to cancel the district's contracts with local police departments for school resource officers or campus police. Unlike Oakland, though, West Contra Costa pays local police to patrol its campuses.
New fare gates that stand 5 feet high are being tested at BART's Richmond station. They're swinging style gates designed to prevent fare evasion. BART officials say the new gates are operated with air pressure instead of a motor and have fewer moving parts to reduce maintenance. It would cost about $90 million to install them system-wide, compared with $150 million for other styles. This new design is being tested now on accessible fare gates for riders who need extra space and time to pass through, like people in wheelchairs or with strollers or bikes.
You notice the cool down today. You'll notice further cooling tomorrow and Saturday. Not that warm, not bad, but not in the 90s. Details on the weekend coming up.
All right, let's go to Alex Savage now. He is in the newsroom with a look at the stories he's working on for the 7 o'clock news over on KTVU+. Alex?
Yeah, Andre, thank you. A protest in Seattle has caught the attention of the White House now. People have taken over several blocks in the heart of that city. Why they don't plan on leaving anytime soon. Also, Starbucks issued a new dress code for its employees. Why baristas are being banned from wearing anything that supports the Black Lives Matter movement. We'll have those stories and a whole lot more coming up tonight, live at 7 over on KTVU+.
But first, after the break, possible legal action being considered to protect a beloved East Bay lake after yet another sewage spill. And taking a live look outside on this Thursday evening with a beautiful picture of San Francisco. KTVU News at 6:30. We'll be right back.
I ordered room service.
Thursday, it's an all-new celebrity watch party. Oh! And guess who's watching Fuller House? The stars of Fuller House.
I'm trying not to be.
And Lindsay Lohan's watching too, and more.
Tonight at 8 on KTVU Fox 2.
Do this. Let's power through together. KTVU and you.
It's happened again, another sewage spill into Oakland's Lake Temazcal. The lake reopened just last week. It had closed in mid-May when there were 3 spills on the same day that allowed 9,500 gallons of sewage to flow into that lake. The most recent spill happened on Tuesday. A park district spokesperson said today that, quote, it may become necessary for the park district to take legal action to protect the beloved lake for the community.
San Jose's Alum Rock Park is now open to the public again after COVID-19 shut it down. Workers removed the closed signs that had blocked entrances to that park. It was closed May 4th when it became overcrowded, and city officials said many people were ignoring social distancing guidelines. People we talked with at the park say they are happy it is once again open.
Just super excited just because it's a very local trail, so it's not far of a drive. Like usually I was going to Los Gatos and stuff like 30 minutes out just to go for a hike, so it's cool just to like have a 7-minute drive for a hike.
This is like what I consider my backyard. This is my park. This is where I can go before my kids wake up, and it's so nice that it's finally open again.
All right, a couple of caveats here. While the park is open, drinking fountains are not operating, and the use of picnic tables and barbecue pits is still not allowed. However, there is limited parking and some restrooms are open. Masks and social distancing are required.
Yosemite National Park is also back open for visitors. Its gates were closed for more than 2 months due to the pandemic. The park's reopening comes with restrictions that include social distancing and an online reservation system for guests. Park officials say they will only allow up to 1,700 cars a day. Nearby businesses that depend on tourism say they're looking forward to the foot traffic.
Definitely needed it, especially being in a small tourist town. We kind of rely on tourism quite a bit, so getting it back open is pretty exciting for the community.
Park officials say vehicles without a reservation will be turned away. People who arrive on bus, foot, or horseback are the only ones who will not need a day pass reservation. Also, visitor centers and campgrounds remain closed. If you are looking for a place to camp, 28 state parks plan to open their campgrounds tomorrow. Most are in Southern California, but there are 2 here in the Bay Area. Those are Little Basin in Santa Cruz County and Half Moon Bay State Beach on the San Mateo County coast. But there is a catch. Campers with reservations between tomorrow and June 21st must rebook them because they were canceled during the shutdown.
All right, quick retraction. I said Skateboard Magazine in San Francisco, and Lindsay corrected me. it was Thrasher, which is a huge skateboard magazine, big part of the skateboard culture. So you don't want to get that wrong. Skateboard Magazine was down Southern California. Okay, so these are the highs from today. 88 in Santa Rosa, 90 in Napa, 94 in Fairfield. It's still pretty warm, but cooler. Fairfield was 98 yesterday, so there's 4 degrees you dropped off. And then you've got 92 in Concord, 91 in Livermore, and then just cooler along the coast. That's today's highs. Tomorrow's highs, forget the 90s. Tomorrow's going to be pretty much all about 70s. No fog right there right now at the coast, but there is fog at the coast, pardon me, but you're not seeing it at the gate. The fog and low clouds will push inland tonight. In response to this bad boy right there, look at that thing coming in, and you can see the rotation on it, and it's going to drop a little bit of rain up in Northern California over the next 24 to 36 hours. For us, its whole impact will be just cooler weather. And this is not a pattern we haven't seen. This is 3 weeks in a row. We've had a couple hot days, and then this trough drops in. And we had big winds last week. We had rain showers up in Northern California, snow in the mountains last weekend. The weekend before that, we had some showers. So the pattern is redundant, repetitive. And the high pressure that was here, that warmed us up the last few days, is now gone. The fog is back, and this low is back. And that just, if this was winter, that'd be a bunch of rain, that'd be a bunch of snow, and that'd be a stormy few days ahead. But it's not winter, so the jet stream doesn't have the temperature disparity that it has in the winter months. By temperature disparity is the difference between the hot and the cold in close proximity. The jet stream goes faster, the air rises. That whole feedback loop is not happening this time of year. And so the jet stream, when the trough settles over us, it just cools us off instead of a bunch of rain. So the forecast highs tomorrow. 73 in Napa, 74 in Fairfield, 75 in Brentwood. And then, yeah, it's sort of funny, Julie, when I moved here, 1977, I was going to Cal, and I was a skateboarder from up in Paradise, California, and I remember thinking, oh yeah, I thought skateboarding was all about Southern California, and at Berkeley, over by Clark Kerr, there was an empty pool, and there was a ton of skaters. It's like 78 or 79, and I realized quickly that the Bay Area is a huge skateboard mecca. I always thought it was LA, but when I'm in the late 70s, I learned real quickly. I have a skateboard, Julie, but it's not. It's kind of like an old man. It's a carved board, which is sort of just has loose trucks in the front. But I just like that. It's a neat culture. It's just neat that you know, San Francisco has such a diversified way, and artists and writers and musicians, and then you have this skate culture. We have a surf culture too, but the skate culture is big.
Yeah,
and Thrasher magazine was sort of the pinnacle of that.
I know you're really into surfing, and I hadn't heard that you were really into skateboarding in your past, but it's fun to know. Little bits of flavor coming out there. Bill, thank you.
Little bits.
Little bits.
Yeah.
All right, coming up tonight, live sports was back in play today as the PGA's top golfers return to the links. Mark will have all the highlights from the Charles Schwab Challenge. That's coming up next in sports.
How's it going, everybody? Mark Ubani is coming to you tonight from Napa again, and the home music room. Hey, add golf to the list of sports that are now back. And you know what's kind of funny is golfers, you know, you often hear them complaining about gallery noise. Not anymore, as there is no gallery today as the PGA tournament returns. All right, first pro event in 91 days, the Colonial in Fort Worth, Texas. Full safety measures in effect, including for the statues. 8:46 a.m., a moment of silence observed to recognize racial injustice. And the shot of the day on the par 3 13th, Sung Kang on a bounce. He's got the ace, Kang. Even with that hole of one, 2 over 72. Par 4 14th, lefty Phil Mickelson with a long, smooth putt for a birdie and a 1 under 69 for him. And one of the co-leaders, Harold Varner III, par 4 18th approach, put a little spin on it, and he'll end up near the cup, set himself up for a bird. 7 under 63, tied with this guy, Justin Rose, who is using a driver to chip from the green. Birdie putt. Rose and Varner are tied for the lead after one round. And just in case you were wondering, Tiger Woods not in this event. Of course, we would have shown him. All right, it's all set, right? July 29th, the NBA is back. Not so fast. Several players today coming out with major concerns with regard to the big plan down in Orlando, Florida at Disney World. Now, the league and the Players Association coming to an agreement on a plan that would allow uncomfortable players to stay home with no consequences. That's being worked out in its final stages. Now, of course, many health concerns voiced by the players and the restrictive nature of playing basically in a bubble. Like, how about this? No visitors for the first 7 weeks. Carmelo Anthony, along with TNT's Ernie Johnson, expressing his thoughts.
As far as actually playing and going back down into Orlando, I'm still up in the air a little bit because I really don't, we don't have all the details. We don't know a lot of information. So until we have that, it's kind of hard to just, commit to it 100%.
Sounds like they've got a ways to go before that whole thing is worked out. Used to be so simple. Just throw the ball out there on the court and play like way back when. And Joe Fonzie has this day, June 11th, in sports history.
The magic was still all so new for the Warriors on this day 5 years ago. Matthew Dellavedova had no answer for Steph Curry in Cleveland.
Curry, crossover, trying to get some space, goes underneath, scoop layup is good.
The Warriors were winners in Game 4 of the championship series, sending it back to Oakland tied at 2 games each. Oakland was the site for baseball history on this day in 1990. Nolan Ryan made the A's his record 6th team to be no-hit.
The Express has done it once again.
On this day in 1977, Seattle Slew won the Belmont Stakes, the first horse to go all the way to the Triple Crown undefeated. And it was on this day in Utah in 1997 that Michael Jordan, suffering from flu-like symptoms, summoned enough energy to score 38 points and will the Bulls to a win in a series they would win in 6 games.
A courageous, classic performance by the flu-ridden Michael Jordan.
That's This Day in Sports, June 11th. I'm Joe Fonzie.
All right, we showed this late last night. I don't feel like it got enough play. Let's check this out again for the early viewers. Lawn blowers. God. That's a kid by the name of Greg Ayers from New Jersey. They say he reached speeds of like 15 miles per hour.
That
Leaf
is so
blowers
funny.
can be
That definitely
annoying.
needed a second look.
Yeah,
I love how he's like jetting around.
People needed to see that one.
Mark, thank you. Thanks for joining us
You got it.
tonight, everyone. Good night.
Good night.